Hello everyone, this is FlatLine, and today we're going to be going over PvP and the late game portion of it. This is a very delicate scenario because there's so many factors into how you want to play PvP late game. We'll go off with the compositions first. We're not really going to cover up the openings and the mid games. This daily is specifically for the late game, so I'm gonna let this ×2 let it do its thing, you know, whatever. I played this guy before this game, by the way, so that's why I'm asking who it is. And I was just curious. I'm not trying to be BM. If you think that's BM, if you do, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be BM. I'm just actually curious to know who this guy is, because I think he was top 16 when I was facing him. I was just curious who it was. Anyways, late game PvP. First, actually, let's back it up. Mid game PvP. We have two compositions, or two common compositions that Protoss goes for. There's the Immortal Archon, and then there's the Colossus base play. The Colossus base play dates all the way back in Wings of Liberty. You know, usually you want to go with 8 Colossus, 8 Immortals, the rest Archons, or was it like 8 Colossus, 9 Immortals, the rest Archons? Something like that. The number of Colossus actually depends on the map. If it's very narrow, if there's a lot of choke points here and there, then you want to go for like a little bit less. Maybe you want to go for 6 Colossus, like 9 Immortals, the rest Archons. Anyways, so you kind of open up between Immortal Archon and Colossus. You pretty much have to choose which composition you want to go for, and then from there you work it out. So the pros and cons between both of them: the Colossus base player, you're getting a better army towards the later stage. Once it gets past 160 supply, when you're around 140 is about even. 160 is when you start pulling ahead when it comes to compositions. When you're around 160 supply, that's where the Colossus player takes over against the Immortal Archon player, unless they have Tempest. If you're only facing a soul, like just pure Immortal Archon charge slot, the Colossus player will end up winning, usually with 160 supply or more. The downside to the Colossus play, which becomes the pro for the Immortal Archon, is that your third base, your extra base. If you're the Immortal Archon player, you should be able to expand before the Colossus player, unless somewhere in the beginning of the game you end up behind. Then the Colossus player can get a third base around the time you get yours. But if you're going to Immortal Archon, you should be able to get your third base before them. Another pro for the Immortal Archon compared to the Colossus is your mobility and the powering of your gates. Like, it's really easy for you to power up and just make a bunch of units compared to the Colossus player, because you're generally going to have a lot more gateways than the Colossus player. Colossus is it's a lot of resource that you have to invest into, whereas the gateway units are pretty cheap. You can kind of think of Immortal Archon kind of like Bio for Terran, and then the Colossus player is like Mech. It's really easy, the Bio player, to replace its units. For the Mech player, not so much. Like, if he loses all his tanks, that's not a good sign. Not a good sign whatsoever. So anyways, we're going to move back towards the later stage. So we covered up the mid-game we kind of make a brief description about the mid-game. Now you have to go into the late-game portion of PvP. There are a couple of factors that people don't realize, that they think, that kind of goes against the theory behind, or the general theory of macro in StarCraft. What I mean is, usually the rule of thumb is have about 66 probes, 67 probes, and then that's it. Now that rule does apply, usually applies across all boards, across all matchups, but in the late game PvP, you actually don't want that many probes. As surprising as that sounds. Usually the reason why people ask or say 66 probes is because you want, it takes 16 workers on the mineral line to gain the most efficient mining, have the most efficient mining, and then 3 in each gas, because gas is more important. 2 is the most efficient way of mining the simulators, but since gas is so valuable and it's like a high demand, you want to have 3. That's pretty much the maximum you should have anyways. So that's a total of 22 probes per base. So 22 times 3, 66 probes. The reason why I say 67 is to have a probe out on the map to put proxy pylons and whatnot. So you can go up to 67 probes if you want, but know that if you lose probes, don't feel like you're obligated to make more probes. I would actually prefer if you don't make any probes at all and just invest that time or that supply space, that freed up supply into the army, because the bigger the army is for you, the better you're gonna have against Protoss. The reason why I say this is because in PvP late game, your army composition or your army should be really hard to replenish. It's really easy to reinforce, it's really hard to replenish, because when you have that battle versus, the army versus the army, it's hard to remake 8 Immortals or 8 Colossus or something like that, or like 8 Archons. It's easy to reinforce with like 10 Zealots, but it's a lot harder to rebuild that army up. So the bigger the army you have, the more units you have attacking theirs, and it will exponentially damage. Like there'll be an exponential difference between your army and his. That's how the engagements usually happen. So you're gonna see in this game, I do have my, 63 probes. He has 56 probes. So I'm getting up there to 67, 66. He was harassing me quite a bit here. And what we're gonna see is me feeling ahead, and then him harassing me pretty well, and then me just going to kill him. That's pretty much the summary of how the game is gonna go. Now, to cover up what I mean, I felt ahead. If you look at the upgrades, and I was being consistent on this, I saw his upgrades. There's no way he was gonna have a forge before me. Also, I had my third before him. I had a DT spot in the third, and I was taking mine. So I had a better economy. I had better upgrades. So what's one way I can get ahead? There's when you're ahead, get further ahead. That's another general rule like people like to throw out there. But what is getting more ahead? Is it just expanding? Is it just adding a second forge and getting double upgrades? Is it getting better tech or more tech? What is getting more ahead? And it's kind of hard to justify which one is the best. But it's never. I don't think there's a scenario where it's like it's wrong to go for something, to choose one of those. I think there's better options. I don't think there's an option where you end up losing because you took that option. I guess maybe expand and he's just like 2 base all-inning. I suppose that's like the only thing I could think of. But anyways, so like I said, to get ahead, went ahead, get further ahead, and I have my advantage in the economy and upgrades. The only difference between me and him, or the only one I'm missing, is tech. And tech is very, very important in PvP. Late game is specifically late game PvP. So what I want to do is secure my army and have an army, or have the better tech towards the late game. Remember we were talking about the Immortal Archon versus Colossus base. Colossus will win once you get over 160 supply compared to the Immortal Archon player. So that is what my mindset is. I am ahead and I want to get further ahead, so I'm going to choose the tech route. Now if I chose the economic route and just expand, get a 4th base, what I want to do then is be able to spend that money that I'm going to have, and to spend that money I need more gates. So I should have way more gates than him, probably at least 4 more gateways than his. So that way I could just overpower him. I could just swarm him with a lot of units and be able to reinforce a lot better than him. If I went for upgrades, I don't think that's the best way to deal with it, because in PvP upgrades is not that important besides getting the attack. Usually people like to get the attack because you just want to kill stuff quicker. You know, like with the Colossus or the Archons, if they're able to clean up that Zealot line, you're able to get closer to the juicy units, the Archons, the Immortals, the Colossus. It's pretty much the objective whenever you have an engagement, is to wipe out the Zealots so you can be able to get on top of the tech units. Now because it's the generally Protoss players who go for the attack, that means your Zealots are pretty much meat shields. They're pretty much going to die. But in the mid game, they're pretty strong. So around 140 supply, 120 supply, they're pretty superior, so it's good to have them. But you don't want to overmake them, because if you hit a spot where you're not able to use your Zealots at their superior time, which is around 100 to 120 supply, they tend to lose value, and they lose value pretty rapidly, because if you're maxed, you actually do not want any Zealots with your army. That's ideal situation. You don't want any Zealots with your army, because they just die too quickly. So what I usually do is, instead of making Zealots, I just add on more gates. So even though these are, I did warp in High Templars. The only thing I warp in is High Templars and make Immortals. But beyond that, all my minerals would be invested into more gates. So if he does push, I have this huge surplus, just a huge gateway. Just, I don't even know what the word is. It's like 6 in the morning. Okay, it's just a huge gateway number. Gate no. You know, forget it. I have a lot of gateways. There we go. I have way more gateways than my opponent. That's so much better. So much better. So there's my 4th base. Oh, I actually go for the 4th base. Okay. So we're gonna pause it here. Obviously, this is a raw thing that I do. I actually do all my videos raw. I don't really like to go through the replay and do them. I kind of just go off, like, trying to remember how the game goes. I know I get better tech eventually, so we're gonna erase that part about me going for the tech advantage. That's still a good choice for me. Instead, I go for the economic advantage. And like I said, if you go for the economic advantage by expanding quicker than your opponent, you want to overwhelm them with a lot more gateways than them. So that's why I just had this huge amount of gateways coming out for me compared to his. Because I have that many gateways compared to me. Right? We have the same composition. I have a better the upgrades. The only difference is my 4th base and the amount of gateways I have. Cool. Now, once I secure this 4th base, I want the option to tech. I have the better tech, because we're around this stage. It's almost 130 supply, where remember what I said, at 160 supply the Colossus player will gain its advantage. So I'm trying to think in the future, I want to have that kind of advantage. Now for him, he's gonna go for, it looks like a 3 base timing or a 3 base all-in. I'm pretty sure he expands though. Yeah, it's just that my Dark Templar is blocking it. So once again, my Dark Templar, being a true champ, laying this even further. Alright, now look how many zealots I have. I have only 4 zealots, and this was from the beginning of the game. Not that many zealots. So remember what I said, instead of zealots, I tend to just make a lot more gateways. And the only time I don't make all these gateways over this, the only time you want to make zealots is when you see him going for the counterattack. Or, you know, if he warp ins and you need to, you know, warp in zealots to defend. Or stall time. Or however you want to word it. So we're going to go for the Colossus base composition now. Some people are asking, why not go for Stargate into Tempest? Well, Tempest is a really good unit, but it's only good against massive air units. And they consider the Colossus to be massive air and massive ground for some reason, because it's really tall, I suppose. So beyond that, they don't have a they don't really have a role in PvP besides sniping. They're pretty much a specialist when it comes, or an assassin. You know, they train to kill 1 or 2 specific units, and one will be the Colossus. So to put in perspective, he should be going for Fleet Beacon, because he also has a Stargate as well, and maybe a second Stargate so he could power up on Tempest. But I don't think he scouted my my Colossus transition. Alright, so it's 152 to 160, so the Colossus player will have the tech advantage, right? It's at 150 supply for me, 160 for him. I think I lose this battle here. We'll see how this goes. See, army supply, 10 supply lead for him. Oh yeah, he drops over here. So this is where he does a pretty good job on harassing my economy. And I lose a bunch of probes. Now this is where you're like, crap, right? This is where you're feeling down. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm about to lose the game. Then you have to think, okay, well first, he invested quite a bit. He invested like maybe 6 zealots and like 4 GTs into this. He kills the Nexus and all my probes. Cool, right? He kills off one of my probes, or all my probes. That just frees up supply, my friend. So what happens now is the army supply is now way ahead for me. I have a 10 supply lead in army. He has the better economy, but he's not going to have the better army. And when it comes to PvP... Oh, I had... I'll just show you too why I put that. Okay. The reason why I said that was, I don't know how this happened, but my mothership core somehow got to this guy's base. I have no idea where this came, like how this got here. But I recalled it back home, so don't worry. So you can see, I'm not really making any, I'm not rebuilding my probe count. I have my 3rd base. All I want is the gas at this point. I don't only need the minerals. And like I said, once you get past that 160 supply, that's when the Colossus player will end up winning. Now he has a better, I mean, if you look at the army, the supply, he is ahead. But look at the army supply, and that's the biggest difference, is the army supply. That's pretty much why I won convincingly against him in this engagement. If you look at the upgrades, they're pretty much the same. But let's look at the unit composition. I have less zealots than him. I have more immortals, more archons, more colossus. So he is more based on high templar or zealots to just swarm me. But like I said, they tend to lose value quickly as the game progresses, because now he's maxed. Look at his money. He actually has a lot of minerals. Definitely should be gaining his gas a little bit quicker in his builds. Or he could just sit pretty with his bank. So I saw his army here. We're going to reposition, get a pretty good concave here. this is another tip in PvP, is all about the conquer. When it comes to engagement, army positioning it's key. It's so underrated. It's so damn important. You don't want to have it where some of your units are not attacking. You don't want to have it where they're being blocked by one of your units because, you know, like let's say I made like 20, let's say I had 20 Colossus and we're over here on top of this ramp or going up this ramp. It would be really difficult for me, or it's not as efficient because I have too many Colossus where this probably will fit like maybe 6 Colossus. Then I have to bring them up if I want the other ones behind them to attack. But if I don't bring up my voids that were in the beginning or in the opening, then the ones in the back aren't going to be able to do anything. You can see Immortal Archon versus Colossus as maxed army composition versus max. I went pretty badly. And it's not because of the upgrades, because I'm pretty sure we're still the same. Yeah. Still the same on upgrades. Difference was, I'm going to go back a little bit and see the army supply. I'm pretty sure I had the bigger army supply. Yeah. Look at the army supply. And the only reason why we're able to, and we're both max, the only reason why I'm able to do this is because of the worker supply. 46 workers to 70. That's 24 supply missing from his army that's in my army. Now, don't take this too heavily because then you're going to be like, okay, so maybe I should just stop at 20 probes. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You want to have an economy to the point where you can actually you can warp in, you know, at least 8 to 10 rounds of units from your gateways, and then you should be fine. So generally around 46, 50, pretty good numbers. The steamroll, it's not the upgrades or anything like that. The positioning was really good for him. He had some units up here, some here, and some down here. I think we had a little bit better though, I would say. But yeah. Let me see if I have a Tempest game. Trying to remember. No, I don't actually. I haven't done Tempest in quite a while. Usually my games end in the mid game. But so to recap, this kind of goes over the Colossus versus the Immortal Archon. Now the Immortal Archon player, like this barcode, what he could have done is gone for Fleet Beacon, double Tempest, instead of getting his own Colossus. Like going into your Colossus when your opponent has already started Colossus, you're basically telling him, I'm going to be playing defensive. If I'm not playing defensive and I want to go for some kind of aggression, I'm always going to be behind in Colossus count because you already had a head start, right? So you following their build, it's not always the best case scenario for you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Sky Toss, get Storm, get Archons, get Blink Stalkers, and you should be fine. Is there any late game PvP that I'm missing? I think that's it. So anyways, guys and gals, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please follow me on Twitch and Twitter at flatlinesc2.com or at flatlinesc2. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at flatlinesc2 as well. And you can check out my website at flatlinesc2.com for more Protoss stuff and a little bit more structured, a little bit more organized in my YouTube channel as well. So anyways, thanks for watching. I don't know what I was about to say. I remember I was going to tell you something. I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I've been talking to one of my friends who doesn't really play PC at all. He's more of an Xbox player, but he is interested in like playing StarCraft, so I did invite him over to play. We're just gonna have to fix up the date, and I'll just coach behind him, and probably will be streaming this. So just stay tuned. You can follow me on Twitter or on Facebook for more information about that. I probably will post that in a blog format on my website as well, to kind of give you a heads up on when the date and time is. Obviously the stream will be on my channel, and then you can kind of see, you know, just a noob, unaware, like just straight up fresh off the boat type of player just play StarCraft 2. Like, he literally does not know anything about StarCraft, so it's gonna be quite exciting to see. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you later.